I left the wire on too long and now I can't salvage these trees anymore. With me here I have 2 ficuses, and these ficuses have grown really, really well. If you recall, I think it was last spring, I made a video about this one. This is a big cutting from one of my big olive trees, and I planted olive trees, fig trees. So this ficus I grew from a cutting, I planted it up and I wired it out in a fukinagashi, a windswept style. When I bent this branch, it cracked at the bottom to bend it, but it survived. And this one I just wired out and left in place, and then I put it in the sun and I let it grow. As you can tell from this spot, but also from this spot, I've not been paying attention to the trees all that much this season. And that is now going to be the cause of a big pruning session. Now if you look closely at this tree, you can see quite easily the windswept style that I was aiming for. These of course have grown back up and I could prune them back, wire them more horizontal, and you get this whole windswept feeling. Except for here the wire, I used a very heavy wire, I made some heavy bends and I just let it grow. And in the last couple of weeks the tree has started to allocate lots and lots of resources into the branches and the trunks, and it has now started to grow around the wire to a point that I don't think it is useful anymore. So why not? Well, let's take a look. If you look at the wire here, you can see the wire looks flat. It doesn't stand out from the branch all that much. The wire has become embedded in the branch. Now let me try and remove a little bit of this wire. It is hard to get a hold of. I can't actually use a clipper anymore. I really need to lift it out. Trying to grow around it, and ficus is really, really good at that. Now this might look like it is not such a big deal. There we go. This might look like it's not such a big deal, right? But these grooves are actually a big deal. And this is why. Here you see the grooves left by wire half a year ago. They actually do not heal over, they just become more pronounced with time. So in fact, if I want to ever make this a nice bonsai, I need to say, okay, I don't want these grooves and I'm just going to clip it off. And that's in fact what I'm going to have to do with the whole tree. So even though the tree is completely healthy and happy, I am going to have to remove the branches that have these wire marks to develop as a better bonsai. I know this is painful, and this is also a video of warning for you growing at home. Keep track of your wire. If you don't, this is the end result. You're going to have to look at these branches and let's say, well, here at the base, yeah, also here at the base, the groove is too big. I'm going to have to remove this whole branch. Because this really is ugly. Even with time, this will not get better. Now you might say, but you're throwing away half your tree. And you are absolutely right. And to be honest, I forgot that I wired these. And that happens. It happens to all of this. Now this branch is much better. There's only a narrow groove. I'm just going to leave this in place. I'm not going to remove this. This will furthermore power the rest of the trunk. Now let's see, is there any more wire that I can take off here? Yeah, here, there's wire. There's always another design possible, right? So you don't have to stick to your design if the tree tells you I'm going to do something different. Now this of course I can cut flush now because I have a strong branch here and I can cut it flush like this, and then I see there's a big stump and I can just decide to cut this all off and let this grow over naturally. Ficus makes latex that seals wounds by itself, so I'm not using cut paste on ficus. There we go. This will look ugly for a couple of years and it will take a bit of time to close, but over time it will close. So I flipped the tree around. Let me remove some of these weeds so that you can see the trunk again, because there's actually a very, very big trunk here laying on the ground. When you look at that, look at what a great trunk is there. And now with the weeds removed, you can see this nice trunk here. You can also see that this trunk is actually moving a little bit to the back, and the whole section that sits here is not really needed for the design. So I can in fact just go all the way into the back and say I'm also going to remove this growth here. Just like that. And now I have a very compact tree, and this is actually quite long already, that I can start cleaning up, wiring out, and create a new tree out of it. Look, all these branches here I can just position. So let me thin this out. I'm going to leave individual branches on the right spot, but these very, very short ones that I don't really need for the design, I'm just going to take off and bring it all back to the main branches. And then I'm going to remove some of the foliage from the branches so we can better see what's going on in the tree itself. And then I'll wire it out and see whether I need to repot it as a preparation for the season inside, because we are nearing the end of summer and all the trees in my garden are now being prepared for the move inside. Now this second tree was also ignored, but it was not wired, so I can just remove the weeds here and then show you what the structure of the tree looks like. And what I really liked about this tree is that it has a few roots here going down into the pot, which gives the impression of aerial roots from an old banyan fig. And yeah, I'm going to emphasize those. But let me remove the weeds and then see what we need to do to get this ready for winter. Wired, pruned. Now of course for styling the ficus I can do it like this, but the leaves are quite brittle, they come off quite easily. And I like to always remove the growing tips to encourage backbudding. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove a lot of the foliage and I'm going to remove all the end buds here. It is a little bit late in the season, but it has been in full sun all summer. And now I give it a chance to backbud before it goes inside. So removing all these ends here. And then I'm going to remove all the inner leaves. I'm going to leave a few leaves on the outside, but most of it I'm just going to remove. This way I create a huge stimulus to start pushing on the inside. And later on I can reduce the branches back to the new side branches on the inside. This of course hugely facilitates the wiring. Let's thin this out and I'll be right back with you. Here it is of course a bit of a challenge. There's a nice side branch here and there's a branch here competing. Can remove that. There's one coming to the front and one going to the back. Now to the front, don't really need it, so I'm going to remove that and keep the one in the back. And this is the way that I'm going to go through the whole tree, thin it out. Latex is of course a very sticky substance, and getting it on your hand means that you'll have sticky spots for quite a long time. So what I've done, I've washed the whole tree down with water. I removed all these leaves and I've removed all the growing tips. The last point, the growing tips, is very important. If you don't remove the growing tips, you will not get the backbudding that you're hoping for. So here the last few tips I still need to clip out. But this will now trigger a massive backbudding response in the whole tree. So this one is now done. This can go back into the sun and hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks it will start resprouting and then it will move indoors. In between I might repot it, but this is basically what you can do, right? If you have big branches with lots of wire and the wire bites in, you can just decide, okay, I'm going to go back to the basics, I'm pruning back. This will give you lots of taper in the trunks as well. And over time, the bigger cuts here, they will heal over. And you just set a new structure and you start over and you rebuild your tree. A tree always has a solution, just look for it. And the same story for this one, right? This is actually grown way too tall, so I can just prune it back a little bit. Just like that. And then also here I'm going to remove all the inner foliage. I'm removing all the end buds. And then I can wire it out. Now, how much you have to remove, that's always a big challenge. So it's best to leave more than that you think that you'll need. But typically, the branches, if you trim it to a rough profile, it will be long enough. Unless you're going to make major bends. Now this is a big branch coming. And I only want to keep this side branch here. So this is going to go all the way back. So the tree gets a lot smaller when you do this. The tree doesn't have a lot of lower branches. So remove a lot of the clutter at the base. And then it's just a matter of removing inner foliage, right? Just like that. As I said, these are very brittle, these attachments, so the leaves come off very easily. Just like that. Well, let me continue doing this, and I'll then also wire it out. I'll thin it out, and I'll show you the final result when I'm through with this tree as well. Please pop me a message down below if you think that this is going way too fast and I should explain more, and you want to see more intermediate steps, so I know for next time. And of course, if you do like this video and you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button, because you'll get information when I update new content. I think everybody knows how YouTube works. There you go. So, fewer branches is more tree. You want in the end an open canopy. Odd as it may sound, less is more, especially with bonsai. Been a couple of days, didn't have time to finish it, got dark, but it's defoliated, and now let's put a bit of wire on to see whether we can shape this one as well. I'll just get back to you when I have all the wire on. This is just 1.5 millimeters of wire, and that should be thick enough for these weak branches. Now I've only wired the branches that I want to position. All of these I have left alone because they're basically too short to really do any positioning. These long ones I have wired, and I want to make them a little bit more integral part of the left of the bonsai. This one needs to come down a little bit more, less to the front and a little bit upward at the end. Just like this. This one comes down. And then again the ends a little bit upward. I want to fill the back a little bit with this one. This one is a bit big to bend. So this is going to be the future highest point on this side of the tree. This eventually I will probably remove completely. Then this, all I want to do is just give it a little bit of a shape so it's not a straight stick coming out and up. So there we go. This is not in a bad place in itself. Here I have one in the back which can come out a little bit more, so from the front you see it better. And here we have another side tip, a side canopy. A little bit down and up. And here just a little bit of movement into the branch. Now with this it already is pretty much coming together as a single tree, or I think. This can go down a little bit more, just like that. As said, this one probably is going to be removed completely once this branch and this branch have set, and then I'll just clip it out in between. Now one thing that I see that you cannot see, but there's now already small buds starting to form here on the trunk. So in a couple of weeks this will explode with new foliage. And with that I think this tree is done, the other ficus is done. 2 ficuses, completely thinned out, pruned back, wired. Now it's ready to go inside. over winter this will sit in a cool room. It will sit in a windowsill. It will get water whenever the soil gets dry. I don't provide supplemental light. This means that they're a little bit weak in this means they're a little bit weak in spring, but that's okay. They bounce back quite quickly as soon as the sun comes out. This was Jelle, growing bonsai, and I recommend you keep doing that.